Hi and welcome to BookTube with Simon and Amy. This is going to be my wrap up for February. I actually had quite a good month in February, I feel. I read a bit of a mix of books, so there were some 5 stars. There was a DNF, so it's a bit of a hit and miss, but I feel like I got through quite a few books, which is good. The first thing I read in February was Empire of Storms, which is the next instalment in the Throne of Glass series, and it was brilliant. I didn't rate this one as highly as I rated the others. I rated this a 4-star. I just felt like it would have been more aptly named if it was Empire of Shaggin and not Empire of Storms. I just feel like in this book there was a real focus to couple everybody up, and while I shipped all of the couples, there was no couples that I was like, no, I didn't like them together, and I don't ship yous together. I totally shipped them, I was fangirling. I just felt like for it to be all at once in the same book, basically around the same time, it was just a bit much, and I'm not a huge romance fan, so I'm in it for the fantasy, and I just felt like all the relationshipy, romancey, sexy stuff just derailed the plot line a wee bit. It's obviously later on in the series, so the world's ending, the sky's falling, there's some pivotal moments coming up, and all everybody's doing is being stuck in a boat pumping for about 3 months. I just felt like it distracted a bit for the plot. However, it was still an absolutely fantastic book, I loved it. And then next up, I read Tower of Dawn, and I hated it. So Tower of Dawn is solely from the perspective of Chaol, who's my least favourite character in the entire series. Despise him! He is an absolute knobhead, and to have a book entirely from his perspective and it be like right before the last book, it was so frustrating. I just felt like it was completely wasting my time. Like I could have just went for Empire of Storms right to the last book, I felt. There is some important stuff in Tower of Dawn that you do need to know for the last book, so you can't really skip it, but I wished that I could have skipped it. To be honest, Tower of Dawn could have been a 200-page novella. Like, I appreciate, if you are a Chaol fan, although God knows why, that you would want to know what's happening with him and where his story is taking him. So I get that. So I get that there was a need to have that written, but it could have been a short story, it could have been a novella. I don't feel like there was the need for it to be a fully fledged novel. It was ridiculous. I gave it a 2-star. The only reason it managed to scrape the 2-star is because, like I say, there's some pretty vital information in it that you need for the last book, and gave you some different character point of views. Nesrin, who I really like in the series, she got more of a point of view, more of a storyline, which is great. The other reason why I didn't really like Tower of Dawn as much is I felt it was sort of a forced representation. So Sarah J Maas has been criticised for there not being a lot of representation. POC representation, LGBTQ plus representation in Throne of Glass, and then all of a sudden it was just like, oh, let's go to the southern continent where all the black people live and they're all a bit bi, and like, it just felt a wee bit like it was being forced, like, oh no guys, like, it's not that I didn't think about representing these people beforehand, it's just they live in a totally different part of the country. So I felt like that was a wee bit forced, which bugged me a wee bit, but it was a 2-star. And then, I mean, it's no a surprise, is it? I read this bad boy. It's Kingdom of Ash, which is the last in a series. Yes, I finished a series. Thank you. Thank you. It was amazing, to be honest. It was a total 5-star for me, and I find in a lot of fantasy series sometimes near the end they'll let you down a wee bit. Like, there's maybe prophecies or stuff that's been spoken about, and by the time you get to the end, like, the questions haven't really been answered and you're left a wee bit wanting, and you're like, well, like, you mentioned this and you've not really resolved that for me. Especially in YA, I feel in epic fantasy they're a bit better than that, but in YA I think sometimes they start off with a really good plot point or this prophecy or something really interesting, and then they get a bit distracted by the romance. And although there is definitely romance and a bit of smut in the series, I didn't feel like they got distracted and there was no unanswered questions for me. I felt like everything that happened was really well explained, it was really detailed, and I was actually pretty happy with the outcome for most people. It was just absolutely fantastic, and there's so much an amazing storyline with Manon in this, and you know I love a bit of Manon. She was my favourite character of the entire series. Manon and Dorian are two of my favourite characters of the entire series. I couldn't pick. And it was just absolutely fantastic, so I really enjoyed that. I'll not say too much about them in case people haven't read them, but I would highly recommend the series. I thought it was just absolutely fantastic. The characters had me gripped from the very beginning, and the plot throughout it was fantastic. Don't get me wrong, like any fantasy, at times like you need to just roll with it and it might seem a wee bit far-fetched and you'd be like but I mean, come on, like, it's a world with fairies and that exist, like obviously it's going to be far-fetched. Next up, I read Diary of an Oxygen Thief by Anonymous. So basically it's written by a guy, and it's essentially, well, like it says, a diary about his opinions, his struggles with alcoholism, his opinions on women, and how he rather enjoys treating us like shit. And it's not normally a book that I would have picked up to read for myself. It doesn't strike me as something that I would be interested in. However, a very good friend from work recommended it to me. She doesn't read a lot, to be honest, and she says that she bought it, she really liked it, and she read it within like the one night. It's a fairly short book, so you could have read it in the one night. And I was like, right, well, I'll get it, I'll read it, I'll let you know what I think. And I hated it. So I rated it a 1 star for me. If it wasn't as short as it is, I would have DNF'd. It was awful, quite frankly. I felt like the writing style was so frustrating. I feel like you would start to get to know the author a bit and start to get to like feel like you were getting to know the story, and then he'd be like, oh, but we'll come back to that, and it would move like further back into his past, and he would tell you something else, and it would be like something else that would be like completely irrelevant to the story. Like, and be like, oh, and then this really serious thing happened, and oh well, we'll get back to that, and then this one time I got steaming with a penguin, and you're like, why can you not write a coherent sentence? Like, that frustrates me, and I know that I'm a really frustrated reader, so if the information isn't out there and up front for me, then that really bugs me, because all I think about the entire time that I'm reading the book is, when am I going to find out what's happening? Like, I don't like the mystery, I don't like surprises, so maybe I just really didn't get on board with the writing style, because it very much was like teasing you almost until the end where you get the full picture. So maybe I just didn't like that because of the writing style, because I am a dead impatient reader. I'm awful. I don't know why I read, to be honest, because that seems to be the bit that most people enjoy. It's the bit I hate. That I felt like it was so misogynistic, and I felt like he basically tried to blame the way he treated women on his alcohol issues, and I don't really feel like he can. Like, I get, like, if you're an alcoholic, then alcohol is your everything, so you might like not care about people in the same way that you should, you might not put them first in the same way that you should, but he actively went out his way and enjoyed fucking women over, and he plotted and he would store information and do certain things to deliberately fuck them up and hurt them, and I don't feel like you can blame that on being an alcoholic. I feel like that is pretty much a choice, and he's very paranoid as well, and so in the end, like, when you find out why he's suddenly changed and it's because a girl has done similar to him, I actually don't even feel like the girl treated him that badly. I think it's hard to determine what actually happened and what he imagined in his paranoid alcoholic brain, and I just basically think she wasn't as into him as he was into her, and he blew it massively out of proportion. It was just dull, to be honest. Nothing much happened, which is fine if you write a brilliant character, or even a character that I hate but is interesting, and he just wasn't interesting. And then, to add insult to injury, first in a series, no be continuing. I won't be continuing. No. And then I read The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So I had been absolutely buzzing for this book, and me and Simon kept seeing it everywhere, and because we kept seeing it everywhere, neither of us were particularly sure it was our kind of book, right? So a wee bit supernaturally, however, I feel like it steers mainly to romance, which is no my bag, and it's definitely no Simon's, so neither of us were really sure why we kept getting drawn to it, but we were, and we think it was just the BookTube hype, to be frank. So Simon bought me it as part of my Christmas, and I knew he got me it as part of my Christmas because we're awful and we tell each other in advance because we get too excited. And so I knew he had it and he was going to give it to me early, and I was like, no, give it to me for Christmas. And I didn't want to start it until I had finished the Throne of Glass series, because I had been really enjoying them, so I didn't really want to take too much of a break, just maybe doing shorter books in between. But I felt like this was an event and not an in-between a series book, so I picked this up as soon as I finished Throne of Glass and I had my wee break between. And you know what? I'm not sure how I feel about it, so I'm not going to give you a summary, because most people on BookTube will know what this is about, and if you are on the internet generally, Bookstagram, Book Talk and such, you will know. So I've given it a 3-star. I found it really difficult to get on board with the writing style. I felt like it was just so flowery. Like, it was beautifully written, but I just felt at some points it was flowery when it didn't need to be flowery. Like, you could have just got to the point. I felt like it was really weird. Sometimes she would write in big, long, flowy, flowery sentences, and then in other times they'd be like really short, sharp sentences, and it felt a wee bit like, I did the audiobook for some of this and I read it physically for some of it, and when I was doing the audiobook, at points it felt like I was listening a bit to a spoken word poem with the sentence rhythm, and I just find that really difficult to get on board with. And I felt like I never really ever connected to the character of Adaide. I felt like she was just a bit bland, and I never really cared about her. I never really got on board with her or her story. And then, because it flitted between her past and then present day, which I don't mind at all in a book, but I felt like I'd maybe just start to make a bit of a connection, or I'd maybe just start to enjoy the storyline in either timeline, and then it would swap and I'd be like, oh right, this is a bit dull again. And I hated pretty much the first half of her storyline in the past, and then it got a wee bit more interesting after she makes the deal. And I didn't really like the beginning of her storyline in the present either. So the first half of the book for me was just a bit of a letdown, and I was actually going to DNF it, because I was just like, I've not connected to any of the characters yet, nothing much has happened, and I'm no liking the writing style. So I was just going to DNF. But Simon was like, you were buzzing for it for ages, like, just see it through and see how you feel. So I was like, alright, okay, fair play, because I was really excited for it, so I stuck with it and I finished it. So Henry comes along. He is a bookseller in New York, and I really liked Henry. I connected with Henry's character pretty much right away, and then I felt like the book picked up a wee bit for me, because I was invested in Henry more than I was invested in Adaide. And then I liked the way that their storyline went. I didn't really like the ending of the book. I felt like Adaide made the wrong call, but I get why people think that she made the right one. I didn't really get on with the ending, but I did like the ending for Henry in a way. I'm not really making much sense, but it's because I totally don't know how I feel about this book, right? So I've rated it 3 stars because it's bang in the middle for me, right? But it's either a 1 star because it was drivel and you wrote rubbish characters and the plot was boring, or it's a 5 star and it's a work of genius, and here's why. So I'm a dead reflective person, and I've been reflecting on this book because I just can't decide how I feel about it, and I'm a dead overthinker, and I can't tell if I've just overthunk it too much. So Addie's curse is that you're not going to remember her, and the only way that she can get around her curse and that she can leave her mark in the world is by influencing all these artists and becoming a bit of a muse, right? So is it deliberate that she's written so bland so that you don't connect with her, she's a bit forgettable, and then all you're left with is this prose that I have already described as a bit poetic and flowery and is obviously artful? Because that could be intelligent. And then Henry's curse is that anytime anybody sees him, they will see like their ideal person, basically, and everything that they are looking for in another human being they will see in Henry. If it is a big huge muscly dude, that's what they'll see. If it's somebody who's got a great relationship with her mum, that's what they'll see. Any quality that they are looking for in a the one level love, they will see it in Henry. And what I wanted for this book, right, was to connect to a goddamn character, and then Henry comes along and is everything I'm looking for. I can't tell if that is like the most intelligent thing ever, and this book is one of the greatest greatest books of our time, and it definitely deserves to be a 5 star, or if I've just overthought it into being good and actually it was a bit mince. So if anybody's read it, please let me know what your thoughts were and let me know what your experience was, because I'd really like to talk about it. I've never read a book before that I'm so not knowing how I feel about, because I'm such an opinionated person and I know what I like. So going into a book early on, I can tell if I'm going to get into it, if I'm going to hate it, and I just couldn't tell with this one. Like, I was toing and froing, and usually like I have a solid opinion, like you're amazing or you're mince, and I just don't know how I feel about it. So please talk to me, help me make sense, let me know what we think. Next up, I read Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn.
Aha, okay, you're doing that. Right.
Yeah.
As you were.
You can make me a cup of tea. Not on the table.
Table.
The table. And then next up, I read One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich by Alexander Solzhenitsyn, and me and Simon read this with Kieran from KD Books as part of his Booker Boy book club, and we felt like it was a wee bit of a late reprieve after reading Les Mis. So I rated this a 2 star. It is very much what it says in the tin. It is a day in the life of this dude Ivan and his struggles in a work camp in Russia. Truthfully, it was just a bit boring. I just felt like I never connected with Ivan at all. So although he was going through all these hard things, and like I appreciate it's hard and it's difficult, when you were learning about this life, I just found it really difficult to empathise with, because I just hadn't connected with him, and I didn't connect with any of the supporting characters either, although they are in it very briefly, and you are basically just following him throughout an entire day, start to finish. It's exactly as it says, a day in the life. and I just found it a bit boring, to be honest. I rated it a 2-star, so it wasn't a completely and utterly abysmal read. It was interesting to get an insight into the life that they would have led. I just wish that I could have felt the emotion of it a bit more for the character, and I didn't feel that. Then I read Sea Witch by Sarah Henning. Again, first in a series, I believe. So I wasn't a fan of this, so I rated it a 2-star. It's basically supposed to be an Ursula origin story. And for the first 3/4 of the book, it was quite poor, to be honest. But Ursula was getting me through. I was like, no, you will see it through to the end, because you need Ursula in your life. Like, you're not reading 3/4 of a book to not have any Ursula. Do you know what I mean? Like, she was the main point. And when the Ursula transformation happened, I was like, yes, loving life, because Ursula is a fucking queen. And the last probably quarter of the book was actually alright. It was decent, but it just took a while to get there, and I felt very much, when I picked this originally, I didn't know that it was the first. I think it's a duology, so she's only brought out another one at the moment, but YA, I mean, it's probably going to be an 18-part series, and I'm probably not going to read them. But yeah, so I could tell very much after I had realised that this was the first in a series, it was drawn out to the end, and I hate when books do that, because it's totally to get you to buy the next one, and I just feel like, focus on your first one, like, make this an absolute banger, and I'll pick up your second one, but don't tease me with maybe like 5 chapters of Ursula to make me pick up the second one. Like, that is a cock tease, an Ursula tease, a tentacle tease. No fan. The writing in this, it was fairly standard YA, nothing particularly groundbreaking or earth-shattering, certainly not as good as Sarah J Maas, but you know what, it was decent, it was an alright story, the characters were okay, it wasn't groundbreaking for me, it was just a bit basic, but I only read it for Ursula, and to be honest with you, I'm probably going to have to get the second one, because I feel like I wasn't satiated with Ursula in this book, so I feel like I'm going to need to get the second one so that I'm getting my full Ursula fix. I didn't feel like it satisfied me in the way that it should have, and I am still longing for my proper Ursula Queen and all her evilness, so I'm probably going to buy the second one, just so I can feel like I'm getting a bit of that, because it just didn't give me it for this book. No, it's definitely an amuse-bouche, not the full meal. And then next up, I DNF'd Eleanor in Park by Rainbow Rowell. So I never really gravitate towards a romance book, but I picked this up when me and Simon did our Christmas charity shop book haul. I had just watched Dash and Lily on Netflix, which I didn't know had come from a book, and now the book is on my wish list. Now I'll read that. So I was thinking this could maybe be something up that alley, a wee bit sweet, and I decided to pick up this month, Valentine's Day and all. Seems the appropriate time to try and read a romance book. And I DNF'd it, so I read like the first few pages, and me and Simon were in bed reading. I had said to him like, whoa, this is racist, and I thought, right, maybe it's just one flippant comment, like the book's not that old, but maybe it's not aged well. I usually give a book 100 pages before a DNF, and I got to 25 pages in this. I got to the part where she refers to her living situation as being like Anne Frank's, when they're not in any way comparable, and I DNF'd it. I was like, no, not for me. I obviously don't read romance, so I don't know a lot about Rainbow Rowell, but apparently this is quite a controversial book, and people are very divided. So some people think that it just hasn't aged well, but it was still acceptable for the time in which it was written, and other people just think that it really enforced those negative stereotypes and was extremely racist, and it's a total no-go. So it was a no-go for me. I don't think I'll pick up another Rainbow Rowell book after this. Not my genre, first of all, but then secondly, like, my first retaste was this, and maybe I just picked the wrong book, but I just think, how could you have written this and not know that it was racist? Like, and not just racist, but like body shaming as well. Oh, it was just awful. So I definitely don't recommend this. It'll just be for the bin, to be honest. And then lastly, I just finished Unravel Me by Taheri Mafi. This is the second book in the Shatter Me series. So I read the first one and I felt like it was very heavy on the romance and not so heavy on the fantasy. And then right at the end of the book, the first book, it gave me like what I was after. I was feeling them X-Men vibes. So I decided to pick up the second, and I had said to Simon, like, look, if this focuses on the romance more than it focuses on like the actual supernatural stuff, I'm not picking up the third one. Like, we'll just finish it there. And to begin with, it certainly focused on the romance more than it focused on the supernatural stuff, so it was a bit like, no feeling it. And then the more we got into the book, the more it started focusing on like an actual plot, which I was pleased about, and I wasn't really sure if I was feeling it or not till I was about halfway through the book. The first half, like I say, because it focuses on the romance, I was a bit like, oh, like, I cannot be dealing with your teenage angst, like, shit, or get off the pot. Like, I'm no bothered about the tension, I'm no bothered about the angst, I'm no bothered about the romance. Show me your mad weird powers, that's why I'm reading the book. Like, if I want romance, I'm going Jane Austen. I'm not looking for fantasy romance. But then the second half of the book really picked up, and I actually became quite attached. The first book that I had read, I didn't really get attached to any of the characters particularly. I really liked Warner, but again, like, he wasn't in it enough for me to feel like I was getting to know him. Warner plays a big part in the second book, and I am actually really attached to him. I really like Warner, I really like Kenji. To be honest, I don't care about Juliet or Adam, and I know that they're like the two main characters, but they just don't do it for me. They're a bit bland, and Juliet is just hella angsty and annoying. But I really like Warner, so I'm going to give the third one a go and see how we feel about that. I gave this one a 3 stars, so it's high enough that I'll probably read the next one, but there's definite room for improvement for me. I don't particularly think that the writing style is very unique. The story's very tropey, but like I say, I'm attached to a character now, so I need to read it to find out what happens to them. But yep, so that was my February reading. A bit of a mixy a month, but I read quite a few books, which was good, and I am so pleased and also gutted that I finished Throne of Glass. It is one of the best series that I've read. I devoured it quicker than I've devoured a lot of series in the past. I actually finished the series, which I've established as an issue for me. But it was a bit of a mixy a month. Some awful books, a DNF, a couple of lower stars, and then some 5 stars as well. So it was a bit of a mix. Hopefully March will be a wee bit better and we didn't have as many DNFs. We are moving, and it is quite a task with the amount of books and DVDs and general stuff that we have. So that's why I am here today, because the living room is in a state of disarray. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoy. Please chat to me down in the comments if you've read any of the books, if you fancy any of the books, and hopefully you're keeping safe and having a great day. Bye.